Behind the Covers, peeling back the covers to reveal what it really takes for authors to get from concept to publication and beyond. Each week, host and author Brandy M. Miller invites you to join her and her guest to share the journey of getting our books out of our heads, onto the page, and out into the world where it can make a difference in your life and the lives of others. And now, host, author, and chief executive storyteller for 40daywriter.com, Brandy M. Miller.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you, honored guests. Come on in, get comfortable, take your shoes off. This is Brandy M. Miller with the 40daywriter.com studios. I'm so glad to have you back this week. Last week we had a bit of a hiccup. And if you're wondering what happened to the first episode, well, that's a story I'm going to get into. And I'll tell you, it was a learning experience for me, and it was a moment of clarity. I launched that first episode, and it was a great sounding episode. My husband and I were really proud of the work we put into doing it. And I loved the guest. She was energetic. She was enthusiastic. But then I had a follower of mine stop me and ask me a question. Is this the kind of book that I want to write? And I had to be honest. No, it's not. I don't write erotica. I don't even want to write erotica. And she said, you know, whenever you're doing, and this is a good lesson for any writer, actually for any business person, to be perfectly honest, everything you do is your brand. What you do, what you don't do, those things are your brand. And if they're not attracting the kind of people that you want to work with, then you don't need to be doing that. You don't need to be going into that space. If I don't want to work with erotica workers, if I don't want to help people write erotica, then I don't need to be interviewing writers who deal in the space of erotica. And that was a really tough decision for me. My husband and I had put a lot of work into that episode, and I was really kind of proud of what we'd accomplished. And I'd actually already sent it out to a bunch of people. So it sort of meant undoing all of that work. And I apologize to the lady that I interviewed because I lost track of my brand, and so I kind of wasted her time, not just mine. And I may have caused some people grief that didn't need to be caused grief, including my husband, who was, for the record, irritated. But he loves me, and so he's back on board with me. But that's my challenge to you today. Get clear about who you want to serve with your writing, every ounce of it, with every post you make on Facebook, with every video you share on Facebook. If it doesn't represent the kind of reader you want to attract, if it wouldn't appeal to those people, don't post it, don't write about it, don't do interviews on it. Because it's not reflective of your brand. It's not who you are, and it's not who they should expect to meet when they meet you on the street. Always be authentic. Be yourself, be genuine, be authentic. That's the best advice I can give to anybody going into business. Don't be one person on Facebook and another person when they meet you in person. That's phony, inauthentic, and quite frankly, damaging to you and to them. It sets them up for false expectations. It sets you up for feeling like a phony. Don't be it. But at any rate, I digress. So that's the explanation of what happened to episode 1. I like to turn all of my mistakes into teachable moments for other people. That way, you know, I get a return on investment out of the mistake I've made, and you get something out of it too. Speaking of which, there are a couple of things that are coming up. Here at the Inglewood Public Library on January 20th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. There are only 11 slots left as of today. But I'm holding a Kids Can Write workshop from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We're going to cover story structure, character discovery, story elements, and then how to put it all together into a story that gets you from beginning to end. And we're going to do all that in an interactive workshop that goes over 4 hours. And that's $50 a kid. Adults are required. Every child should have an adult accompany them. So you're really getting a twofer with this. It's $50 for the kid. The parent comes in free, or the adult that comes with them. So it's great for grandparents trying to bond with their kids. It's great for parents trying to bond with their kids. You get the idea. But I want to encourage you that if you haven't thought about attending, you do. Reach out to me at brandy@40daywriter.com if you're interested. I'll make sure to reserve a slot. If you're local, you can pay at the door. I prefer you pay in advance because materials will be included. But that is available. It will be in the Altenberg room at the Inglewood Public Library on Saturday, January 20th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Here's the other thing that's happening. Later that night, from 7 p.m. to 7:30, I'm holding a webinar called Unstoppable You. It's the art, science, and math transforming past pain into heroic superpowers that allow you to change lives, save lives, and create a better world. I'd like to invite you to attend. The event is on my 40-Day Writer page. It's also on my Facebook page, and you can go find it on Eventbrite too. So those are the big, big things that have happened in my world since the last time we talked. So I'm really glad to see you again. So now we're going to start the actual podcast, now that I've finished rambling. I'm going to introduce you to my friend and former client, Gaurav Wadekar. He just finished his new book, An Immigrant's Guide to Integration. He's a lot of fun to talk to. I know you're going to enjoy this interview. So come on, and let's get started. All right. Well, welcome to the Behind the Covers podcast, where we're peeling back those layers on what it really takes to get your book from concept to publication and beyond. And we've got Gaurav here. He is from Australia. Well, originally India, but he immigrated to Australia. And that's what his book is all about. It's An Immigrant's Guide to Integration. So tell us about your book, Gaurav.
Well, what I realized as an immigrant, especially moving from one country to another, is that many a times when you move to a new place, everything is different. The lifestyle is different. The culture is different. Even the career opportunities or how people approach career opportunities is different. And while people might handhold for a few days when somebody comes in, but then overall you need to really integrate with the new country. So I really thought that there is a need. Someone needs to tell steps or give some kind of guidance so that people can integrate better and properly into a new country. So yeah, and especially now with globalization, people are moving across from different parts of the world to different parts of the world. So it becomes even more important for somebody or address concerns that people may have as far as integration goes. So yeah, that's the book all about.
So did you publish this book yourself, or did you go through a publisher?
Yeah, no, it's a self-published book. Yeah, I've
awesome.
Gone through myself.
So what was the reason for you choosing to self-publish over going through a traditional publisher?
One is speed, of course. I did a lot of research. I approached a couple of publishers as well, but then the response that I got, predominantly I got a feeling that if someone goes for publishing, it takes 1 to 1.5 years sometimes.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to wait. So
I can totally understand that. It also allows you to have better control over your profits too. I mean, let's be honest.
Yes. Oh, that too. Yeah. So it's a balance between the reach you get and the money that you can control. So to very frank, until obviously we met and we spoke and everything happened, I didn't even realize that I'm going to make any money from the book. So the book was more of like a passion that I want to tell my story. I want to let people know that, something like this exists, where there is help available and, nothing to be afraid of, scared of. So I just wanted to tell that story. And but then I do agree that control over your own profits is more when you do self-publishing. And nowadays, like, self-publishers are also very, very good in distribution. So the one that I've got is going to help me with distribution in online, offline, all the channels. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's a lot easier than it used to be, for sure. And so how much are you pricing your book at? If somebody wanted to go online and buy it, or to go to a bookstore and buy it, how much would they expect to spend?
Yeah, so very interesting. Yesterday, in fact, I was having this conversation with somebody here. I went to an event and I was just talking about the book. Now, she is a very good friend, and we were talking about the pricing, and I said, I want to charge 15, Australian dollars for it, and she said that's too low. So I think maybe what is happening is that I'm not able to see the value in what I have created, while others maybe are in a better position. So I'm just going with the gut feel of other people. So I think I'll probably the print maybe at $20, and then obviously the digital version will be around 60% of that. So something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's it is. Pricing is one of those struggles you have when you're self-published. You have to make that decision and try to guess where the market's at.
Yes, and yeah, I mean, if you really think about it from my perspective, also my target audience is, not in Australia, but people who are coming to Australia. So I want to sell more in the home countries from West America, India, China, and the pricing there has to be really very competitive, because if I put like $10 there, then it is fine. But if I put 20 there, then the whole dynamic changes, and there is also the numbers are bigger there. So as compared to in Australia, so which means that if I am a bit competitive there, it's okay. So I mean, it's a global pricing strategy, to be very frank with you. It is like, it's not going to be like one thing is going to fit everything. So different regions will have different pricing. Yeah, is what I feel.
Yeah, well, and that's normal. I mean, you're exactly right. Not every market, $20 in the US might be nothing, but $20 US in India might be a lot.
Of course. Oh, nice. Yeah.
So you have to kind of be conscious of that audience that you're dealing with. So, all right. Who is the intended audience for your book? I think we've already covered this just a little bit, but let's talk about that intended audience, the person that you really want to reach.
So a person who is willing to or is ready to move from one country to another is basically a potential audience for this book. So although the book is written in a way that it says obviously an immigrant's guide to integration, but then what you need to know when you move to Australia. So it is very Australia focused. So somebody who wants to move to Australia, the book is written for them, because that is a logical thing. But then the concepts and the ideas which are presented there pretty much are applicable, depending on wherever you want to move. But I would say that a person who is willing to move to Australia is basically the target audience for the book.
Good. All right. So was this the first book you'd ever written, or was it just the first book you'd published?
Yeah, definitely. It was the first book. I mean, I'm so excited. It is the very first book I have, I think I have been thinking about a book with my name on it since 10 years maybe, and finally I think I found that book that, okay, this is a book that I need to really put some effort in. So yeah, very first book, and I'm very excited. That.
Yes, it is. And your writing process, we'll talk about that, because you and I met online and I helped you get that book finished. Your writing process was a little different maybe than most authors. So let's talk a little bit about that. How did that work for you? How did you get your book written? I'll just let you talk about your experience.
It was really interesting. So what happened is that, I mean, I think the thought process has to be there, and you basically start meeting the right people, So I met somebody who introduced me to you, of course, and said, yes, this is the person to go to. And I, to be very frank with you, I didn't give it the second thought. I was like, no, this, I have to do it. And I think now I understand why they call it as a writer's block, because when you sit and write, like I can write 1,000 words in less than 45 minutes whenever I'm writing my blogs or my articles or content.
Mm-hmm.
So I have realized that I do have passion for writing, but then when you sit and write a book, it always becomes a bit difficult as to how you are going to connect the dots and what you're going to write. And so yeah, I think the whole session that we had and the exercise that we did together, where you practically took the book out of me. It was like literally kind of going inside me and pulling it, saying that okay, yes, there is a book there, and you just want to come out. So so that really helped, because that put all my thoughts together. They said, okay, yes, this is how we should structure it, and all those discussions that we had about what should be the flow of the book, and what should we say, what should we tell, what will the audience want to know. And that really helped, because then I could dwell a little bit more. And once we had that going, once we had that start, then it was just building on it.
Exactly. So once we had that outline in place of what you really wanted to cover and what you wanted to talk about, it was easy to ask the right questions and to interview you on that subject matter. And then, once you have the interviews done, it's just a matter of transcribing everything and putting it into a manuscript.
Yes.
And, I think that method of writing makes it almost effortless. Not that it is entirely effortless, but it helps. It's just like,
oh no,
yeah,
totally, no, and not only see, I think what happens is not only helps, it gives you something to work on.
mm-hmm.
So once you gave me the manuscript, I was like, yes, now I have something to start with. Now I can basically build on this. I can maybe add a few things. I can change it if I want to. So in fact, to be very frank with you, after you did the manuscript, I took like almost 2.5 months to just sit on it, think about it, each chapter one by one. Yes, this is the flow, this chapter should be there, blah blah blah. So I think because when we are talking, obviously it's a different flow, but when we're writing, it's a different flow. So but so yeah, I think I would probably say that I had a very smooth writing process. Like, it was literally a writing process. And I was telling somebody other day that once I get the book published, once I get it in the hand, I'm going to publish every book, like one book a year, maybe, every year, just go publish. So yeah, I'm really, really happy and excited again.
Yeah. Well, it is exciting. And, that first book is usually the hardest one to get done. But once you've done it, it's like, wow, I don't know why I waited so long to do this, because it's not that difficult. I think we make it in our minds a bigger deal than it really is,
Yeah. And it's very emotional as well. So, when I was looking at the cover, the publisher created the cover, and then I looked my name there on the cover, and I was like, this is it. I got it. I'm almost there,
Exactly. There's that feeling of significance that comes with seeing your name on the title. I mean, it's kind of like I'm somebody. I mean, it's not that you weren't somebody. You've always been somebody, but now you can point to something in a store and say, hey, that's mine.
Yep. No. It's the self-realization. And I think what also happens is that other people look at you in a very different way, is what I've realized. Like, so a lot of people do it, and I did as well. So I kind of had two different covers, and I asked people as to what option should I go with. And people that I have not spoken to in like 15 years responded. So although we are connected on Facebook, we never kind of, and then somebody responded and says, "Go you, I mean, good job." So that was pretty good feeling that people are there watching, even if they're friends,
Yeah, I
so
think we don't realize this a lot, but our friends and family, even if they don't speak, they are watching and they are listening to what we do.
yeah,
And, I think that is something that everybody should keep in mind when you're on social media, is
yeah.
that whether you realize it or not, they are paying attention.
Yes. So yeah, it could go either way, right? So
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, I do think that having that book out there gives people a new level of respect for you, because although statistics tell us that 80 to 90% of people want to write a book or believe they have a book in them, fewer than 20% of them will ever sit down to even try and write it.
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, actually. The fact that, and I think most of that is, and the reason that I started this podcast actually, is because I think most of it is that fear of not knowing how to get it done, not knowing what's going to happen once it gets done. Can I make it? Do I have what it takes? Well, you'll never know until you put yourself out there.
Yeah. I think there was a just on that, and there's a very good point that you mentioned, because there was a point where, so I had paid my money to the publisher, and all that was done, and then but I was just not sending the script. I sent them everything. I sent them profile, blurb, whatever they wanted. I sent them everything, but I just was not sending the script. And I was talking to one of my friends here, and she said, "Why is it that you're not sending?" And I was like, "I don't know how people will receive it, you know." And she was like, "How are they receiving your blogs? How are they receiving your articles? Do they like it? Do they read it? Do they comment it? Do they come back to you?" And I was like, "Yeah." So then why are you kind of? And so even if I was done written, I still had that tiny whiny, fear in me that how people will respond, And then I think there was a tipping point, and then I just tipped over and said, "I don't care. I am going to publish no matter what. This is what it is. This is the book." The thing that also I realize is that I am never going to be 100% perfect, So
No, and no book is. No book is ever going to be 100% exactly what you hoped it would be. It's never going to be 100% perfect. And if you wait until the day it's perfect, you'll be waiting for forever.
So you just kind of get out there, put the book out, and say, "Yes, let's improvise." See, it is not the end of the world. Once the book goes out, it means that you can always come up with the version 2 and version 3, and keep on updating it,
right,
upgrading it. So I think that is something that I learned in the whole process, is that just get the book out, just see as to what happens, because I don't know what is going to happen after the book is gone out. I don't know how many copies I'm going to sell. I don't know as to who is going to approach me, what kind of opportunities or doors it is going to open, because
yeah, exactly. You never know what you might be invited to do because you wrote that book, right?
yes.
So before you decided to write your book, what did you imagine the publishing process was? How did you think that was supposed to go?
Well, I think I always thought that it was a very complicated process, and I will have to deal with many people, and so I realized that I have no knowledge about the whole industry itself. So my idea was that basically, if I write it or take help from somebody to write it like you, after that I will need to find somebody who can basically publish it. So really put all the necessary elements like the ISBN and this and that, and basically collate all that. Then there will be somebody who will probably, I will have to chase up for the design, and interior design and exterior design and stuff like that. And then I will have to talk to somebody for the printing part of it, and then the distribution is whole another game. So I had no idea, to be very frank with you, as to how. But then when I started doing research and I found out that help is always there, so
Yeah, it is.
well,
It is
well,
always there. But
yeah,
there
so
are a lot of pieces that go into the publishing puzzle. I mean,
yes.
I had worked for a publishing company when, in the early 2000s. So I did have a little bit of an idea about the behind the scenes, but even I didn't know all of the pieces that were involved. I didn't really, until I started self-publishing, then I was like, whoa, there's a lot to this game.
Yes.
And
I think,
yeah.
the biggest piece, sorry, Brandy. So the biggest piece is, I think, distribution.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think the printing and, the taking care of the initial thing is all easy. I think distribution is something that I really thought was a very important puzzle, or piece to the puzzle, because if you don't have a strong distribution, you're not going to get that reach. And while also having this offline online, you have to publish on Kindle. There are some.
Yeah, there are lots of things to that. One of the best publishing houses I found as far as worrying about distribution is Ingram Spark, because they have international. They're everywhere. They're in China, they're in India, they're just about everywhere you could be. And but they have a lot stricter standards than like CreateSpace does. And their process is a little more clunky when you're trying to work through it in terms of getting your book out there. So it is, you do have to know the publishing house, what they're capable, what their distribution channels are, where they're at. If you want to take advantage of those international markets, that's something you definitely have to be prepared for.
Yep. No, I totally agree. So even the publishing house that I have selected is in India, and they have been really helpful. The process has been really smooth. They have they assign someone like a project manager to you, which means that that person takes care of everything internally, and you just have to deal with one person. And they keep on sending you all these emails and asking you to do things, and basically they follow up with you rather than you chasing them up.
Well, that's nice. Yeah, that is a very good sign, actually.
Yeah.
If the company you're working for follows through with you rather than making you chase them down. I think that's one of the fears of people that usually do work with overseas companies is, how reachable are they going to be? Am I going to be able to get the feedback and the support that I need when I need it? And, I think that is something that tends to stop people from reaching out to companies that might be overseas, because sometimes our experiences aren't as stellar as they need to be. But yeah, it sounds like you had a really good publishing company. Did you meet them through somebody you knew?
So I found them online, but then when I was talking to one of my writer sort of friends in India, the person also suggested their name. So they're based in Chennai. They're called Notion Press, and they are pretty good because they have kind of broken down the entire process into different packages. And you can choose which package you want to, and they basically are very streamlined in their thought process, and they know which stages you are at and what is it, and they admire and appreciate you as a writer. So it's not just any other book for them. I mean, they'll probably show as if they are giving equal importance to all books, and I think sometimes it is important because it is a significant thing for me. For them, it will be a regular thing. They might be publishing book maybe every day or something like that. But then, for me, it's a big thing. So, and they make it feel like it's a big thing. So, pretty good in terms of their structure. And there are very big expos that are happening in India in Jan. So they were chasing me that, look, if you don't give me now, your book is not going to be in the expo. So, you better do that. And,
so they're holding your feet to the fire.
Yes, very much, yeah.
And that's actually a good thing. And accountability is kind of important, when you're going through. Let's see. So you've already talked about that. How you'd wanted to write a book for 10 years before you actually decided to write one. Yeah. So what stopped you before that? What kind of made you go ahead and say, you know what, this time I'm not going to let it stop me anymore. I'm just going to do it.
I think this time I found a topic, to be very frank with you. So, while I always wanted to write a book, I never was sure as to what am I going to write. I am not a very good storyteller, so I know that I'm not going to write.
That is not true. I have talked to you enough to know you're a great storyteller.
So, okay.
And you like telling stories, and that's great. If we don't tell stories, we don't connect. So
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, yes, I am I can tell story, I can tell my own story, but when it comes to that creative thought process and say, okay, let's come up with some fictional characters and build a plot, and I mean, that is something that I probably didn't think that I will sit and do. I was more of a non-fiction guy. I wanted to write book in the finance. I wanted to write one point in time a book on travel. So I had like all these different ideas, but I never found a topic. I never found that, okay, this is what I'm going to write. But so this time I actually came back to Australia in this year in June, so 2017, and basically when I came here, I think, and I realized yesterday again when I was talking to the same friend, and how much has changed for me in the last 5 months, So I came here, I got my job, I started helping people find job here, and, that just built on and on. And then, I got lot of, attention, recognition, whatever you want to call it. And I really thought that what I was doing, what my thought process was worth sharing with others, and I think I found a topic, and I was like, yes, this is the topic that I want to write a book on. And now once it is done, it is like I have opened a Pandora's box. It's like yes, now each day I get an idea. Okay, let's write a book on this. Let's write a book on that.
It is contagious. Once you start writing, I mean, it just explodes. Basically, the ideas never stop.
No. So I've already thought about the second book. Hopefully, I should be able to conceptualize the whole thing and see as to how I can do it. But basically, it's just now I think it's a snowball effect. But I think that was the biggest reason. I mean, 10 years, you keep on thinking about, yes, you want to do something, but you can't really pick that topic as to what you want to write on. And then suddenly you find one day that, yes, this is the topic, and you just go for it. So yeah, that's what happened.
Awesome. All right. So let's see. And how long did it take you to get the book written, from the point where you started to the point where you published?
I think I would say around so I'll get the book in maybe next 3 weeks. So about four months.
That's not bad for a first time writer. 4 months is nothing. That's a sneeze.
Yeah. So 4.5 months. Yeah, because when I came here in June and when I started the whole thing in July, that is when I got this idea, and from the idea till the whole execution of okay, this is what we're going to do. I think everything was happening really fast for me. Like things were just moving so fast. I was doing so many things together, and the book was just I was just doing it on the side, I would say, but I realized that the more effort you put into it, the easier it becomes. And also my intention was to provide value to my reader. So
absolutely.
So it's a guide. The book itself says it's a guide, which means that I wanted to share as much as I know, so that there is absolutely no stone unturned if somebody wants to really decide whether they want to come to Australia or not. And So that was my whole idea. And once you have that in mind, and you have that thought process of adding value to the reader, then I think the flow automatically starts coming and it becomes a bit easier. When you're trying to write the book for the sake of writing the book, it becomes a bit difficult and you want to put more thoughts. But when you have the end user in mind, and you have, okay, I want to provide them with as much information as I can, it becomes, I think, easier. And I think that is what I learned and realized.
Yeah, absolutely. So was the hardest part about it just deciding to finally publish it? Or what was the hardest part about writing it for you?
Yeah, I think hardest part was just to kind of decide to publish it, because
just to let go of the baby.
Just to let go of the baby. Yeah, I mean, let it walk on its own, and let it fall, and let it stand up, and so I think.
We talk, some of my author friends, we talk about the fact that it's a whole lot like birthing a baby and then, raising it up, and then you're like afraid to let it go meet the world. Well, what if something happens to it?
Yeah. No, it's totally true. And I think what also happens is that, it's a very interesting point there, because, as an author, obviously, you want, you don't, I mean, yes, there will be people who will be judging you because of your book, and there will be good comments and there will be bad comments.
Yes.
And you should have that thick skin and say, let go and just, go for it. And this is the book I have. You like it, you don't like it, but this is the best I can do right now. Okay, if you have any comments, anything, I'll take it as a constructive thing, and then I'll just take it step by step. So that whole fear of the reception as to what kind of reception the book is going to get, that fear has to be overcome. Once you overcome fear, then you can just go and say, yes, let's now publish it. Let's see as to what happens. It doesn't matter. I don't care. So
yeah, whatever happens, you can adjust for it. You can, make changes that you need to make.
Yes, because if you're not there, you're not there. I mean, you have to be there to kind of find out as to where you can go from there. So it's something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Did you? I don't think this was a problem for you, but did you encounter any writer's block?
To be very frank with you, I did to an extent, because although I got a very good start from you, I wanted to add a few things to it which I thought might be important. So especially when I was writing a few chapters, and I realized that when you write about a particular topic, and if you have thought about that particular topic for say a couple of days, and you sit and write about it, but there is a point in time where it comes and you basically don't know what to add further. And I just realized to kind of just take a break. So just switch it off. Just switch it off. Think about other things, think about other chapters, or just don't think about the book for that matter, for a couple of days, and then you go back to it, and then you'll suddenly see that from nowhere, the flow has again started coming. And you know that, because see what happens is, it's up to you. I mean, you can stop where you want to, but then you want to add something, you can't figure it out that. So I did had those moments. I wouldn't say it was a very continuous regular thing, but I had those moments. And I realized that yes, there could be something like that, even for like the next book that I am thinking. Already I know that I mean, there is a limitation to what I can do or what I can write about it. And I mean, the concept, or it is not a myth that there is a writer's block. It is, I think, a true thing where people are not just going to write thousands of words in one flow. I mean,
right, exactly. And writer's block does often come. It usually means that you don't have enough information. So you don't know like where you should stop, or did I include enough information, or did I put this in the right order? Is this making sense? And sometimes I've found that, for me anyway, sometimes what helps with writer's block is if I talk it out with another writer. Tell them what's going on, show them what I've got, and then let them walk me through what their thoughts are, because then I can play off of those.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So let's see. Who is your biggest supporter in your writing?
You.
Awesome. Always happy to help.
So I think obviously I got a lot of support from you, but I think my wife has been really supportive.
That's awesome. A supportive spouse is really important.
Yeah, because she she has gone through the process herself. So she moved from one country to another. She embraced the new country. She actually became the citizen of a new country, and she went through the entire process of in the true sense, integration.
Mm-hmm.
And the feedback that she gave me was so important to me. And I think what happens is that you want to know from somebody who's done it.
Right.
And thankfully I found that in my wife, who basically had did that. And so I think no I truly appreciate as to I was in a position where she was right there, and I could talk to her and say, look, what do you think? This is what I'm writing, whether I should write it this way or this way. Because see, I mean, I had to keep a balance, because while I wanted to show the reality to people, I didn't want it to scare them off.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Well, it's kind of like talking about parenting, right? You want to, you don't want to scare people off of parenting, but you definitely want to equip them for the realities of what they're going to meet.
Yep. So exactly. So I think that really helped. And then, there are so many people who have basically given me ideas on my way, and especially, Australia itself is an immigrant sort of country, which is, so many immigrants have come here from across the world. So you bump into anyone and you talk to them, and you have a conversation, and you realize that okay, somebody is from some other part of the world, and you have that conversation going, and yes, what, it doesn't matter as to where you're coming from, you're going to face all the same problem and the same things, and same barriers. So yeah, but I think the biggest help was given to me by my wife. She was always there. Yeah, those late nights I used to sit and read and write, and she was like, what are you doing so late? And I was like, yeah, the book. And she used to say, okay, do you need what, have those late night tea conversations sort of thing, where you just sit and say, yes, yeah, so, oh no, that shouldn't be that way. Oh yeah, no. Did you consider this? And I was like, yeah, no, not yet. Okay. So those little talks.
Yeah, that does help. So do you belong to a writer's group, or did you while you were writing this?
No, I was not part of any writers group. Although having said that, there is a meetup here in Australia, in Sydney especially, and the writers meet every Tuesday in a particular spot and sit and write for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So initially I used to go there for a few weeks and just sit and write things. And so I think those kind of groups really help. There was another group, I just went to that meetup once, but that's a group where they give feedback on everybody's writing.
Yeah, so, some groups do. Not every writer's group does, but some groups do. Yeah. I used to actually run a writer's group when I was in Elko. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. I started it actually because I had written my first book, How to Write an Ebook in 40 Days or Less, and published it. And in writing it, I had recommended that people develop a support network to help them with their writing, gather some people around. And I talked about the fact that they should look for a writers group, but I had never actually joined one or been part of one.
Wow. Okay.
And I was like, you know what? That's kind of hypocritical. If you're telling them to go do it, then you haven't done it. So I looked around to see if there was a writers group locally, and there wasn't one. So then I went to the bookstore owner and I asked her if she would allow us, if she would host us. Because I could see it would benefit her, you know, bring customers in and everything. She was willing. So Thursday nights we started meeting, and it started with just 5 writers, and it grew to about 25. Now they wouldn't all show up at once, but you know, I held it every week. So you'd have like 10 and 12 people showing up, because there were a lot more writers than I thought in a town of 25,000 people. You wouldn't think you would find so many writers, but you know, but you did. And what we would do is we would have accountability check-ins. Basically, I would have them set goals for themselves in terms of how much writing they wanted to get done. And then the next week we would roll call and check in to see how we'd done. And it does help to have accountability, and it helps also to have other people who are writers who can tell you whether you're writing, what specifically is or isn't working about your writing. Because the average person is going to tell you, oh, that's good, or oh, that's not so good. But they're not going to be able to tell you specifically why it's good or why it's not working.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I was talking to you know, a friend of mine, and he was telling me that he wants to write fiction. And I told him that there is such and such a group which is there, which meet you know, every month, and then there is another group which meets every week, and you know, and he was amazed. He was like, wow, that's brilliant, you know. I mean, as many times what happens is that also you know, I don't know about writers in general, but many people who probably write a book is something that they're doing on the side, which means that you really need that focus on it. You know, you really need to go back to it again and again, give it as much attention as you can. So it may not be a full-time job for you, but then you know, you want to consider it as a full-time job and give it as much importance as you can. So having a group always helps, because then you know, you have the right mindset people. And because I mean, I don't know any writer who's basically my friend or who's around, you know. So it was no one that I could basically pick up the phone and call and say, hey, you know what, how do you think I should go about this, or what is it that I should do about it? And you know, when you go out, you meet people, you talk to people, and they say, oh, look, this is what you should do, or this is what you should do differently, or you know, and then you go, yes, maybe I never thought about it like that. And because the writer thinks from different perspectives, and you know, there are a lot of angles to the story. So
definitely. So all right, we already know some of those answers. Let's see, what kind of things are you doing to market your book now that you're getting it out there?
Yeah, so I still have to, you know, I'm probably not a very good planner, but I think a marketing plan is going to help. So currently, to be very frank with you, I have gone with the publisher, and they have a package. As part of that package, they are going to distribute the book for me. So because they are in India, they're going to help me distribute in India, because India is one of my big markets in the time from there. So they're going to go to proper stores, you know, that is one thing. They're going to distribute there, and you know, they take the responsibility of refilling and everything, so you don't have to worry about it. So they have tie-ups with all the stores, so thankfully if the books get sold, and you know, they just keep on printing and sending more and more, so you don't have to worry about that coordination. And apart from that, they're going to publish it online. So I have planned a few book launches. So
okay, good.
I'm going to you know, couple of book launches in India, and then you know, in Jan, and then when I come back here again. So I'm going to India in end of December, and then when I come back in mid-Jan, then I'm planning to do you know, a book launch here in Sydney. and then maybe in Feb or March I'll probably go to Adelaide, Melbourne, or I'll just travel and do some book launches. So that is what I was thinking. But apart from that, I have not really thought, because as I said, I didn't do it. I didn't do it considering that I'm going to make money out of it. So I just want to spread the word that help is at hand, and basically, I know that it is going to be a challenge when you come to a new country, and you know, yeah. So we are there to help and support.
All right. Okay, so let's see. What do you wish you'd known when you first got started that you have learned through this process?
I think that I've learned that basically, if you, there is a lot of support available for writing book, which I didn't knew before. So I didn't knew that you exist, for example.
Well, that's okay. There's a lot of people in this world that don't yet know I exist, but I am working to fix that.
Yep. So yeah. So I think there is a lot of support available. There is a lot of information available. And when you say you want to become a writer, people are willing to help you. Which I didn't knew first. So, when you write something and you show it to somebody, people are willing to give you that feedback, and total strangers, unknown people, and giving really quality feedback. And I was like, wow, this is gold, and I didn't knew that. I thought I was on my own, and but I think that is one thing that if I would have known earlier, because now I can say that, look, I'm going to write the second book because I know it. I know that, there is help available, like who to talk to, whom to go to, and, what to ask, So I think that was one thing that I probably, if people know it, then I'm sure it will become a bit easier for them to go through the process. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's actually a really good point, is that there is a lot of help available for writers. You don't have to sit in a dark room and try to figure it out all by yourself.
No.
You can make friends. You do not have to be alone all the time to write. Now, does it mean that you need to be in public all the time? No. I mean, there's lots of writing that can happen in private, but you don't have to be isolated to write.
Yeah, definitely. And, people always appreciate, what you're doing, and it doesn't matter, when I go to this writers club, or when I basically went to that meetup, I realized that everybody is supportive of everybody, and there is a storytelling competition, why don't you participate in that? There is an exhibition happening there, have you gone there? And whole conversation is around books,
and people are more than willing to help you if you'll just let them know that you're ready for the help.
Yes. Oh, that's important. Yeah.
All right, so let's see. Are you working on any books currently? Are you working on your next book?
I've just thought about it, but I just want to kind of really, think through and see. So I'm always fascinated with interviews. So as part of my current book, actually, I started doing some interviews, but then I couldn't get to a lot. And then I decided that I just want to drop them for now. But then, I think one thing that I probably is going to do is kind of have some interviews and, collate information from the interviews. So that is one idea.
Just as a suggestion on marketing, you might want to start an immigrants podcast.
Yeah.
Interview people who have come over and what their experiences were. Yeah. And, kind of like I'm doing with the book publishing, it might be a really great way to reach people and promote your book at the same time.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool idea. Yeah. And yeah, and there is a lot of value, and because what happens is, while I give you a very broad target audience, I said, okay, anybody who wants to come to Australia. But then if you really go into a bit details, there is a breakdown, because there are people who come here on, say, tourist working visa, and they have a very different mindset because they are here to actually, travel and see the new place. So they don't really are here to work, and it's a different thing. Then there are student visas, so people come on to become students, and they have a different mindset, and different audience. And then you have permanent residents who come here on a permanent skilled visa, and they have a different mindset. And you have dependent visas, and so you have all this different variety of people. And I think if something like that is done, then it will target to the different audience which is there. So if I interview a student and say, okay, this is what was your life like, or what happened, or what regret you had, or all those things. And I think, yeah, that's a good idea. So
Yeah, there you go.
so, yeah.
There you go. Your marketing plan is born.
Yep.
See, that's what you get for coming on this show. All right. So there you go. Let's see. So where can the audience to go to learn more about your works in progress, updates on what you're doing, where they could meet you, what meetups you're hosting, things like that?
Wow.
Is that?
I don't have something like that. Well,
I guess could they connect with you on social media?
So I have it partially. So I blog on my own website. So it is called GauravWadekar.com, and it has information about me, who am I. I write about events that I attend, events that I conduct. I write about integrating. I write about all that. And but I have not really used that platform or that website to connect with other things that I'm doing. Like, for example, I have a very solid, strong meetup of almost 700 people now, and so there's no connection between the website and the meetup. So yeah, I got this idea of that somebody said that you should probably start a website with the meetup name, and I was like, because the meetup name it is called Finding a Job in Australia, and that has really kind of clicked with people. And
probably a topic that's in pretty hot demand, I would imagine.
Yep. So but I think you're right. Maybe I should probably put some connection, but if people want to connect with me, I'm always active.
But yeah.
And I was saying that I'm active on Facebook, but then if there are people who are seeking professional help, and they basically want to connect me on LinkedIn as well, because LinkedIn is another platform where I'm really active. So I'm sure if you search for Gaurav Wadekar, then there is only one job search mentor in Australia.
So far,
kind of say that I'm unique.
Definitely.
No,
all right.
So yep.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground. So if you had one thing that you wanted to tell the audience, one last thing that you wanted to share with them, what would it be?
Just go and get that book published.
Just go and get it done. Yeah. Stop sitting on it and waiting for forever.
Yeah,
I think one of the things that I like about your story, though, is your idea actually came because you got involved in your community. I mean, if you hadn't gotten involved in that meetup, you wouldn't have known that there was a need. Because you got involved in the meetup, you recognized how much of a need there was for something like this.
Yes. No, totally. And I think, as I was telling you earlier, I basically found the topic, so, and you're right. And until you go out there, you meet people. I don't know how it is with the fictional world, but then with the non-fiction, so if you're trying to solve a problem, then get involved with the problem. And also it helps if you have gone through the same problem yourself.
Right.
And that's another added advantage. But you're right. I mean, the meetup has given me a lot of, I think, sense of, self-belief, I would say, because, it reconfirms that yes, I mean what I'm trying to do or what I'm doing is something that is really working. So
Right.
yeah, so no, it's just awesome. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
work, everything
Well,
is yeah.
my third book that I published came out because of the writers group that I started. See, when I started the writers group, I asked them what their biggest obstacle was to getting their book done. And out of the 20 that I polled, 10 of them were listing time as the biggest obstacle. And so I wrote a book called The Right Time, How to Find All the Time You Need to Write a Book, to help them. And, I think that's something that a lot of writers miss out on. If you will just get involved with other people, get involved in your community, you will spot the problems that a lot of people are having and how you can help them address those problems through your writing. And then you won't have as much trouble selling your books because you've already got a built-in audience.
Yes, no. So, I mean, if you really think of it, I already have an audience, I already have people who are there. And I mean, my meetup events, I've seen a lot of people doing meetups and they have to really market them, really struggle to get people in. And I don't give even free food or free drinks. I just kind of say, you know what, we're going to talk about this topic. Just get there because, you need it. You should come there. So their own good. So
yeah, absolutely.
And stuff like that. I just say, no, you just get there. And when you care, it shows.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, when you care about the outcome as to whether or not the person gets the results or not, I think that becomes self-evident. It's people like people who love to help them.
Yes.
And the thing about selling books is that you're more likely to sell to somebody who knows you or knows that the book is written for them and their scenario, that it's going to address something that helps them. And knowing more people helps you sell more books. So, yeah. Just how it works.
Yep.
So,
yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on board with Behind the Covers, the podcast where we peel back those covers to reveal what it really takes to get your book from concept to publication and beyond. Thank you again, Gaurav. It's great talking to you. It's always a pleasure. And we'll have to follow up with you in about 6 months and see how that publishing tour is going.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much.
And see if you've got anything new started up in the meantime. Right?
Yes, you will know before that. Don't worry.
All right. Have a great evening. Thank you again for joining me, Brandy Miller, your hostess with 40 Day Writers Studio and Behind the Covers, where we've peeled back the covers to reveal what it really took for Gaurav Wadekar to get his book, An Immigrant's Guide to Integration, out of his head, onto the page, and out into the world where it can benefit himself and others. I thought it was really great that Gaurav reached out and got interviewed to get his book done. I mean, how hard is that? It's a simple interview. And, having somebody else help you pull those questions together, outline your story, ask the right questions to really get into your audience's head is huge. And it takes all the guesswork out of what you're going to write about. And also, as you notice, Gaurav had already started building a following well before he wrote the book. So he kind of had an idea of what his audience really needed, what problem they were facing that he could then help them solve. And it's important, even as fiction writers, to think about what problem can I help somebody else solve with my writing. Your fiction is a vehicle. And in it, you're telling a story about a challenge that somebody's facing, a problem, and the solution that they eventually pick, and how that works out for them. So you really can use fiction as a vehicle for helping people learn to address problems in their everyday life. And here's the truth. If you want to make money, you have to remember that it's 2 parts to making money. First, that somebody has to trust you enough to be able to deliver the result that they want. And second, that they have to be committed to getting that result. That's what money is. It's a measurement of the trust that they have in your ability to deliver a result and their commitment to getting that result. And as long as you have earned their trust and they have that commitment, they will be willing to pay you the money. So, my author friend, I am so glad you joined me today because that was some important stuff to hear. And as you notice, it didn't take Gaurav long. Once he reached out for help, and that's another thing that writers don't always remember to do, reach out for help. If you don't know how to do something, it's okay to admit you don't know how to do it. Go find out. You'll solve your problem, and you might even be able to help somebody else along the way. Now, if you are interested in learning more about my process that I use for writing, you can find me on goread.com. My ID is Brandy142. So it's goread.com/authors, Brandy/Brandy142, or you can just search. And you should be able to find them. I have one even on conquering that single-page synopsis, the dreaded single-page synopsis, and kind of make it easy for people to do. Please do come to the webinar on the 20th from 7 to 7:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. You can sign up on my 40-Day Writer page through Facebook, or you can find it through Eventbrite. I would love to have you. It's totally free. I'm going to be covering a lot of information. You're going to want to be there. And then next week, I want you to invite you to come back and join me as we interview together Pamela Tafer, the author of Shadow Heart series. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that is and introduce you to her. Thank you again so much. This has been a great interview, and I've been so glad to have you on board. Once again, it's Behind the Covers, Brandy M. Miller with 40daywriter.com, your Chief Executive Storyteller, signing off.
This has been Behind the Covers with host and author Brandy Miller. Behind the Covers is a 40-Day Writer production, produced and mixed by Randall Miller. For additional information about the show, advertising opportunities, booking, and more, please visit 40daywriter.com. Behind the Covers is copyright 2018. All rights reserved. Join us next week and explore more of the world of writing and publishing on Behind the Covers.